Imagine trying to con a super cop and accidentally awakening an absolute love monster. Yo, Manga Offload here. Today, we're covering the chaotic story about a smooth-talking con man who just needed to survive one measly night of gang activity, but ended up getting completely cooked by the most lovesick police officer to ever walk the earth. Smash that like button and let's get right into it. We open on a deceptively soft scene. A man and a woman are sitting together like a couple, and this girl, absolutely gorgeous by the way, is holding a fork with a piece of squid on it, leaning dangerously close and gently coaxing him to open wide. The narrator floats the big question: a man and a woman, a couple. How would you define their relationship? As lovers? Our guy immediately dodges the squid like it personally wronged him. The girl fixes him with a dead-eyed stare, demanding to know exactly why he's dodging. He completely splutters, frantically arguing that they aren't lovers yet and that feeding each other is strictly lovers' territory. She comes right back like a lawyer delivering a closing argument, pressing him to confirm if they're just friends then. He violently panics, blurting out that they are just a man and a woman having a meal together and that it's at least fair to say they're more than friends. Then she bluntly tells him to look closely, asking if he can still confidently say that. She brings out a box sitting beside her. It's a homemade bento with a heart carved into the rice, a handmade heart bento. Our guy's eyes twitch into full system failure mode. He stammers in absolute shock over the handmade bento, realizing this means they're already way past the friend stage. She just smirks. The narration poses the real question hanging over this whole story. What if they're neither lovers nor friends? Let's rewind to figure out how on earth we got here. We cut to a high-class restaurant that screams financial crime. City lights sparkle in the background as two wine glasses clink in a toast. On one side of the table sits an older, well-dressed woman who is absolutely glowing. She happily gushes about having such a lovely dinner and warmly thanks Seiichi. On the other side, smiling smoothly back at her, is our guy Seiichi Sagino. He tells her that this dinner is completely natural, since it's in commemoration of their marriage. The woman starts swooning about how it feels like a dream for an older woman like her, but Seiichi cuts her off. He looks deep into her eyes and smoothly insists that age doesn't matter and that he fell in love purely because it's her. She slides a marriage registration form across the table, bragging that she's already filed for divorce from her current husband. All Seiichi has to do is sign. His phone buzzes. He apologizes smoothly, citing an urgent work matter on an ongoing project. But as he stands to leave, he picks up the marriage form with a razor-sharp grin, murmuring that he has to fill this in too. This man is a professional con artist, an extremely good-looking one. The second he's outside, the mask drops completely. His phone crashes to the floor, instantly getting crushed under his shoe. He stands in the dark with his hands out and his eyes blank, shards of the marriage form falling around him like broken glass. A cool voice behind him praises his expectedly flawless work. We pan out to reveal a massive, heavily intimidating Yakuza-looking man, Taka-san. He grins, complimenting Seiichi's fine con job. Seiichi sighs and warns Taka-san not to scare people like that. Taka-san casually apologizes for dumping more work on him immediately, but the gang has a new job. He needs Seiichi to handle something. Seiichi violently grits his teeth, begging him to make this the last one. Taka-san cheerfully guarantees that this is absolutely the last time, which is probably a total lie. Nobody in the history of organized crime has ever meant that. Then Taka-san hands him a photo. Her name is Ren Karasuma. He points out what a fine lady she is. Seiichi looks at the photo and goes completely pale because Ren Karasuma is in a full police uniform. She is a cop. Taka-san explains that this woman has an almost supernatural ability to sniff out criminal activity, and she keeps sticking her nose directly into the gang's operations. There's an illegal arms deal going down tomorrow night, and Seiichi needs to make absolutely sure Officer Karasuma doesn't blow it up. Seiichi stares in sheer horror, completely mind-blown that he has to pull this off by tomorrow night. Taka-san flashes a dark smile, letting Seiichi know he's counting on him. You know what that tone means. If Seiichi screws this up, the consequences are fatal. Seiichi stands outside the local koban, a tiny neighborhood police box, having a full internal crisis. He realizes it's hell if he moves forward, and hell if he retreats, marking this his very first block of hell. He fiercely psychs himself up, desperately trying to build confidence. He also briefly questions why on earth the gang's sworn enemy is working at a regular neighborhood police station of all places. Just as he's deep in thought, Ren Karasuma gets directly in his face. Her eyes are flat and predatory, her revolver is drawn, and she completely deadpans that she smells criminal scum. Seiichi's soul files for an emergency exit. She scans his face against the entire national criminal database, which she apparently has memorized inside her head. Finding no match, she tilts her head and asks if he's a regular civilian. She wonders if she was just imagining it, since her intuition is usually right. Seiichi recognizes her and internally erupts with relief. If he had a single criminal record to his name, it would have been game over before he said a word. No wonder Taka-san was sweating about this woman. He nervously stammers out a cover story about losing something. She stares at him for a long, deeply uncomfortable moment before flatly telling him to come in. Seiichi follows her inside like a man walking into a lion's den wearing a meat suit. She slides a lost and found form across the desk and instructs him to fill it in. As he starts writing, she immediately points out his mistake. He tries to impress her, praising her incredible ability to remember the entire database from memory. She completely shuts that down, totally unmoved, stating that she's just doing her job. But Seiichi's brain is running the con analysis at full power. He clocks everything about her. She's unsociable, earnest to a fault, and clearly has absolutely zero experience with men. He realizes her extraordinary crime detection ability isn't passive. She's only showing it right now in this conversation while he has her full attention. But while she was busy processing his lost and found report, that guard was completely down. His eyes sharpen as he figures out that his only chance is to keep her entirely distracted. The method Sagino comes up with is absolutely, certifiably unhinged. He looks Ren Karasuma dead in the eyes, takes a breath, and with maximum confidence announces that she is incredibly beautiful. Straight up flirting in a police station on a one-day deadline with a gang boss waiting for results? Now, before you close the tab, this is highly calculated. Time is critical, so slow manipulation is off the table. And more importantly, Seiichi has identified that someone with zero experience in love responds far better to a direct, sincere approach than any elaborate scheme. He went for the direct hit. Ren gives him the most withering look in recorded human history, demanding to know what on earth he's talking about. Seiichi doesn't even blink. He pushes harder, loudly claiming he's never seen a beautiful woman like her, praising her as a cool beauty who is amazing at her job. He hypes her up as a cool police officer who protects people. He aggressively follows it up by asking to grab a meal together, banking on the fact that there isn't anyone who wouldn't be pleased to be called beautiful by a stranger. Internally, Seiichi is dying. He's sweating through his collar as he realizes she isn't giving even a single positive reaction. Every second without progress is a second closer to a very bad outcome from the gang. The clock is ticking. Then Ren closes in on him slowly, her voice dropping dangerously quiet as she demands to know exactly what he's trying to pull. The word death starts watermarking Seiichi's vision. Winning someone over in one day is essentially impossible. So how does he get through to her? And then a spark of absolute desperate genius fires off in his brain. If he can't make her fall for him, the only option left is to make himself fall for her. Perform the crash. Make it real enough she believes it. He looks up at her, puts on his most unguarded face, and nervously confesses that he only said it because he fell in love at first sight. Ren pauses, covers her expression, and looks away. and in a voice barely above a whisper, she actually accepts the date. Outside, walking alone, Seiichi reports over the phone that he's already arranged plans for tonight. He's quietly relieved, thinking he somehow managed to pull it off. But the narration quietly notes that Seiichi had yet to fully comprehend the absolute unit that is Ren Karasuma. They meet at a cafe. Ren shows up still in her full police uniform, which Seiichi has barely time to process before she slides something across the table. It is a marriage registration form, with her full name, Ren Karasuma, already filled in. Seiichi completely stares at it, wildly asking what this is and why she's still in uniform. Ren simply replies that it's exactly what it seems. When he demands to know why, she tilts her head and casually reminds him that it's because he fell for her at first sight. The narration steps in to explain. Ren Karasuma is a woman with absolutely zero history in love, but that void created a longing so deep and aching that it had nowhere to go. So when this man appeared in front of her, a stranger who called her beautiful, who called her a cool beauty, who declared he fell in love at first sight, in her starved and inexperienced brain, it didn't just feel flattering, it triggered a complete and total catastrophic system override. Let's go back to the police station for a second, because we need to see what was happening inside Ren's head in real time. Every single time Seiichi called her beautiful or cool, her heart went absolutely crazy, thumping completely against her will. There aren't many women who don't appreciate being called beautiful, especially by a stranger. Karasuma was absolutely no different. However, her cop instincts were firing red flags from the moment Seiichi walked in, deeply suspicious of a random man complimenting an officer on duty. But when his excuse for pulling this stunt was that he fell in love with her at first sight, something inside her that had been waiting a very long time just broke wide open. At that exact moment, the manga tells us, a maiden in love was born, or as it lovingly labels her, a love monster. Back in the cafe, Ren is already doing the math out loud, figuring that when they get married, she'll change her name to Ren Sagino. Seiichi internally freezes, realizing he's using the fake name he wrote on the Lost and Found form. Seiichi is in complete freefall. His original plan was to string her along just enough to occupy her for one night, then disappear cleanly. A shallow distraction, nothing more. But the deeper he gets with a policewoman, the higher the risk of total exposure. Marriage would be an immediate, catastrophic game over. He violently tries to apply the brakes, desperately arguing that they just met and need to start by getting to know each other. His plan is to propose something light and casual, nothing serious. But the concept of a casual relationship has been entirely deleted from Ren's love-struck operating system. She looks at him with the serene certainty of someone reading off a grocery list, stating that they're going to end up marrying at some point anyway, so they should just do it now. Seiichi goes pale. He scrambles, claiming he doesn't have his name seal on him right now, so he'll have to take the form home. Ren cheerfully tells him not to worry, because she has a fake name seal completely prepared. All he has to do is stamp it. Seiichi's brain is running at full speed. He debates just accepting it and dealing with it later, but quickly realizes he can't risk a single mistake with a cop. Suddenly, he desperately screams that getting married all of a sudden would be a massive waste, begging her to let them start as friends. Without warning, Ren starts walking away. Seiichi asks her where she's going, but she ignores him and walks off. He figures she went to the washroom and slumps back in his seat. He internally groans about what a massive hassle it is trying to make someone fall for you without actually making them fall for you for real. The clock ticks. He taps the table nervously. She's been gone a while now. He starts to seriously worry if something happened. His phone rings. He picks up. On the other end is Taka-san, and Taka-san is not in a good place. He screams his lungs out, calling Seiichi a massive idiot and demanding to know the meaning of this. Seiichi, completely lost, frantically asks what's wrong. Takasan is vibrating with fury, screaming that he explicitly told Seiichi to ensure she doesn't botch up her trade. Then, a horrible pause. Seiichi realizes it can't be. Bang, bang, bang! We cut to a back alley storage room. Ren Karasuma is standing in it with her gun raised, firing rounds at a cowering Takasan, who is very much having the worst night of his life. He screams at her to cut it out, but Ren just keeps firing with an expression of absolute disgust on her face as Seiichi watches in absolute disbelief. On his knees, Takasan calls Seiichi a traitor and threatens revenge in extremely colorful terms. Suddenly, a bullet blasts right near his head. Ren, thinking the threat was towards her, tells him flatly that threats don't work on the police, coldly adding threatening a police officer to his charges. Takasan yells that she can't do that, but she's completely done listening. She caught him red-handed in illegal arms dealing, promising he will be punished accordingly. Ren glances over at a shocked Seiichi and perfectly casually asks why he's here. He nervously stammers that he got worried when she didn't come back. Ren calmly explains that she suddenly had an urge to crack down on crime during their date, wondering out loud if it's because a certain someone betrayed her. Then she casually mentions that she just happened to find this scum conducting an illegal arms trade in the back of the building. This is the arms trade Takasan needed tonight, the one Seiichi was assigned to protect. Ren dismantled it entirely because she got a funny feeling during their bathroom break. Our man is absolutely not okay. Seiichi realizes that if this trade fails, it means violent retribution from the gang, but if he stops Ren, it would be obstructing an officer from doing her duty. There is no version of this where he wins. Takasan recovers and desperately tries to pick up his dropped gun. Seeing this, Seiichi does something completely, irrationally, dangerously unhinged. He throws himself towards Ren. She's immediately confused, but quickly notices Takasan holding his gun. She screams at Seiichi to get out of the way, but Seiichi dramatically yells that he will protect her and never betray her, begging for her forgiveness. Ren is entirely convinced that Seiichi is putting his life in danger for her, but in reality, he's just acting as a decoy to help Takasan escape. Takasan quickly thanks Seiichi as he makes his grand exit. Later that night, the two of them are standing outside together. Ren quietly apologizes for being so curt earlier, admitting that when he promised not to betray her, it really made her happy. She genuinely believes they can have a good relationship. Seiichi stares at her, flashing a small, complicated smile, internally sweating as he wonders what on earth he should do now. Meanwhile, Ren is clutching the marriage registration form against her face, completely flushed pink, whispering that she wants them to be not just friends, but lovers. Seiichi stands at the edge of a cliff, and the manga makes it literally visual. Two paths of pure destruction. He realizes stepping forward into lover's territory is hell, and stepping back into friend's territory is also hell. Sweating bullets, he tells himself to think. He needs to figure out a relationship status that can completely break through this impossible situation. He opens his mouth, strains against both impossible options, and lands somewhere right in the middle. He looks at Ren, takes a breath, and with the energy of a man who just invented an entirely new relationship category specifically to avoid dying, proposes that they become more than friends, less than lovers. To Ren Karasuma, a woman who had spent her whole life surrounded by case files and criminal records, and who had been quietly longing for love more than she ever showed, those words hit like nothing she had ever heard. Innocent and bittersweet all at once. Both the flutter of something romantic and the safety of something not yet fully defined. For someone who yearned for love more than anyone, it struck an absolute critical hit. Ren smiles softly, purring that it sounds good to her. The next chapter kicks off with Seiichi currently getting aggressively hit on by a super cute high school girl. She's tightly clinging to his arm on the street, begging him to go out with her. Seiichi flashes a smooth smile, telling her he's totally flattered, but explicitly pointing out she's a minor. She just pouts, boldly insisting that it doesn't matter at all. But suddenly, the air goes violently ice cold. Looming directly behind them is a terrifying, dead-eyed Ren Karasuma, tightly gripping her heavy police revolver. To figure out how Seiichi got into this specific mess, we flash back exactly 1 hour. Seiichi is sighing heavily on the street, realizing he's completely trapped in a waking nightmare. He honestly can't believe that a master con man like him actually managed to make a policewoman fall for him. He knows that if he gets too close to Ren, his criminal identity gets totally exposed. But if he grows distant, the gang violently takes him down. Taka-san's voice echoes in his head, aggressively warning him not to cause any trouble. Right on cue, Ren's voice echoes back, cheerfully waving that terrifying marriage registration form. He heavily curses his own genius for creating the more than friends but less than lovers status, realizing it's just its own special kind of hell. Right then, he spots that exact same high school girl being cornered nearby by a slick-looking guy in a sharp jacket. The guy claims to be a producer at an entertainment agency called Flying Bird and confidently tells her someone like her could become a top model in no time. The girl instantly lights up, actually thinking about giving it a try. Seiichi instantly senses something is way off. He steps right up and cuts directly into the conversation, casually asking if he can borrow her for a moment. The producer immediately glares at him, snapping that if he's there to hit on her, he needs to get lost because he's in the middle of a legitimate talent scouting session. He aggressively shoves his business card forward as proof. Seiichi stares at the card, totally unconvinced, and bluntly asks if this entertainment agency is actually real. The scammer violently yells at him, but Seiichi smoothly explains he's just checking since there have been a ton of entertainment industry scams lately. The scammer fiercely fires back, daring Seiichi to call the number on the card, promising it'll connect directly to the agency. Seiichi casually does just that. The scammer immediately starts heavily threatening a massive defamation lawsuit if he actually connects to the agency. The high school girl nervously tries to get Seiichi to apologize before things get totally out of hand. But Seiichi just warmly tells her not to worry. He flashes his screen, proudly pointing out he actually dialed 110, the direct police line. He cheerfully announces he's calling a police acquaintance to verify the entire situation. Seiichi pleasantly offers that if it turns out to be a real agency, the guy is more than welcome to sue him for defamation. The scammer instantly goes pale with absolute panic. Snapping back to the present, Ren finishes listening to Seiichi's explanation and warmly smiles, fully understanding the situation now. Seiichi nervously begs her to put away her gun, pointing out that her cute face and terrifying vibe don't match at all. Ren admits she honestly thought he had found another woman, but Seiichi desperately promises he isn't capable of pulling something like that. Just then, the high school girl profusely thanks Seiichi and literally makes a run for her life. Ren looks at him, totally surprised that he actually noticed it was a scouting scam. Seiichi almost exposes his own con man background, but quickly stops himself, awkwardly claiming it was just a massive coincidence. The narration reveals the absolute truth. As a master con man, Seiichi easily reads the psyche of others and instantly realizes it was a dirty scouting scam. Suddenly, Ren officially thanks him as a police officer for stopping the crime. While Seiichi fully acknowledges he is total scum who operates in morally gray territory, he still possesses a genuine sense of pride. For that exact reason, he absolutely despises indiscriminate scams that target the vulnerable. But then Ren tilts her head and casually observes that Seiichi sure is popular, isn't he? Seiichi freezes up. She intensely glares at him, strictly pointing out that he looked perfectly happy walking arm in arm with that high school girl earlier, even though he already has her. Ren aggressively tries to grab his arm, but Seiichi violently dodges her. She fiercely demands to know why he immediately pulled away. Seiichi awkwardly tries to dodge the question, nervously reminding her that they aren't actually dating or anything. That was a massive mistake. Ren's eyes start violently glowing. She gets right up in his face and coldly demands to know if he truly fell for her at first sight. She intensely questions him on why he went out of his way to interfere and if a normal civilian could spot a scam that easily. The narration drops some critical intel. Ren Karasuma's crime intuition is extraordinary, but it's not a passive, always-on system. It activates with full, terrifying force, bypassing all normal deductive steps to reach a conclusion instantly. The massive catch? It only fires up when her affection for Seiichi wanes. Without missing a single beat, she bluntly states that he smells exactly like a criminal. Seiichi violently shudders in absolute terror. He internally combusts, completely mind-blown that she activated her super cop radar just because he pulled his arm away. Is this woman for real? Ren's eyes go dangerously wide. She's already doing the math, wondering exactly what his reason for approaching her was, and heavily questioning if he has an ulterior motive. She raises her heavy revolver right at his chest, declaring she's going to actively punish him. With his life flashing before his eyes, Seiichi smoothly tells her she isn't his because he absolutely doesn't treat women as objects. It is an instant, super effective critical hit. Ren aggressively blushes, clutching her chest as her terrifying aura completely vanishes into thin air. Completely flustered, she mutters that she doesn't really mind that part of him. The narration notes that love is entirely blind, and by making Ren conscious of love, her intuition completely loses its effectiveness. Meanwhile, Seiichi is internally trembling, sweating oceans, and screaming about how incredibly close he just came to death. Completely back in her love-struck mindset, Ren drops the gun and eagerly suggests they just start officially dating already. Seiichi completely freezes, asking what she just said. Ren repeats herself, and Seiichi desperately tries to pump the brakes, frantically reminding her they literally just met yesterday. But Ren cheerfully declares that time doesn't matter in love, especially after Seiichi's statement about not treating her as an object. She winks, shooting him some adorable finger guns, and boldly declares she wants to make him entirely hers. Seiichi frantically argues back, insisting that romantic relationships shouldn't be about who belongs to whom. He desperately claims it should be about both parties being entirely equal and actively supporting each other. Ren completely imagines her and Seiichi supporting each other and smiles softly, totally agreeing that treating someone as a possession is bad. She finally backs down, agreeing to stick to their more than friends, less than lovers status for now. But then she puts a finger to her chin and intensely asks what exactly they are going to do today. Seiichi nervously mentions normal date stuff like going shopping and getting lunch. Ren instantly kabedons him against the wall, aggressively pointing out that's exactly what lovers do, so they might as well just date. Trapped again, Seiichi screams out the absolute first distraction he can think of, Wabi-Sabi! Ren is completely lost. Seiichi forcefully tells her to try imagining it. We instantly transition into a gorgeous imaginary sequence of them in high school uniforms, sharing an umbrella in the pouring rain. Ren nervously apologizes for forgetting her own umbrella and making him share. Seiichi plays the cool guy, telling her it's totally fine. More importantly, he tells her to move in closer or she's going to get completely drenched. She hesitantly shuffles in, accidentally bumping into his shoulder, and frantically apologizes. He smoothly just tells her it's fine. She can lean right in. Back in reality, Ren is basically having a nosebleed just imagining that incredibly pure scenario. At that exact moment, Seiichi gets a massive confidence boost. He had perceived something absolutely crucial about Ren Karasuma's understanding of love. It is essentially on the exact level of a middle schooler. It's pure, completely inexperienced, and totally unguarded. He smoothly explains that Wabi-Sabi is an aesthetic philosophy deeply rooted in Japanese values, focusing on the beauty found in subtlety and restraint. By following its spirit, they adjust their boundaries gradually, slowly learn about each other, and let a stronger connection develop naturally over time. Seiichi confidently tells her this slow burn is the true charm of being more than friends, but less than lovers. Ren fully buys into it. She smiles and asks if in the pure spirit of Wabi-Sabi, they can at least hold hands. She aggressively tries to grab his arm. Seiichi violently fights back, realizing he can finally use Wabi-Sabi to restrict Ren's actions. Ren relentlessly pulls him, aggressively arguing that even normal friends hold hands. Seiichi yells that holding hands totally stops being normal after elementary school. Right on cue, a group of elementary school kids walks by holding hands, completely proving his point. But Ren grabs his hands anyway, fiercely declaring that it's fine if it's in the spirit of Wabi-Sabi. Suddenly, a loud click echoes out. Ren has completely snapped one side of a heavy pair of police handcuffs onto her own wrist and the other side directly onto his. She holds up the cuffs with the most devastatingly pleased expression imaginable. Blushing heavily, she cheerfully rationalizes it, stating that they aren't physically touching, but they are still completely connected, asking him, "How about it?" Seiichi violently stares at the metal handcuffs and screams at the top of his lungs that this is an absolute no-go. Chapter 3 kicks off at a cozy cafe where Ren and Seiichi are sitting together in a booth. Seiichi is currently sweating bullets as he takes a sip of his coffee, while Ren is sitting there with a slice of cake and the most devastating pout known to mankind. Ren breaks the silence first, launching directly into her grievance. She fires off that it was Seiichi who proposed they move forward in the spirit of Wabi-Sabi, wasn't it? She calls it completely unacceptable. Seiichi sighs, quietly pointing out that moving forward in the spirit of Wabi-Sabi was supposed to mean not as friends and not quite as lovers either. Seiichi violently complains that they look like nothing more than a police officer escorting an arrested criminal. We get a quick flashback of them walking on the street, completely handcuffed together as passers-by gossip about them. Back in the present at the cafe, Seiichi is still freaking out, reminding himself that it's no laughing matter because he actually is a criminal con man. Ren is heavily pouting, completely ignoring his panic. Seiichi cheerfully tells her to have some cake and cheer up. Ren enthusiastically eats her cake, looking absolutely adorable. Seiichi gets slightly captivated, internally admitting she genuinely looks like a pretty charming woman when she acts like this, but he instantly slaps his brain back to reality, heavily reminding himself that such romantic feelings are completely unnecessary for a con man. Suddenly, Ren calls his name as she holds out a piece of cake on her fork and demands he open wide and say, "Ah!" Seiichi, expecting this, plays it cool and dodges the attack by smoothly claiming he isn't good with sweet things. Ren gets visibly disappointed and aggressively demands to know why he even brought her to a cafe if he won't do the "ah" routine. Seiichi flawlessly counters that cafes aren't just for that and points out that she was the one who dragged him in here while she was still fully on duty. Seiichi notes her middle schooler view on love makes her obsessed with these classic cafe tropes, but given a convincing enough reason, she can easily be persuaded. Realizing she's losing the argument, Ren's face turns bright red. She violently pivots, excitedly declaring that if he won't eat it, then Seiichi should feed her instead. She happily opens her mouth, waiting for him to do the "ah" for her. Seiichi totally expected this counterattack. Usually, the "ah" thing is an act strictly reserved for lovers, and doing it is basically admitting that they're lovers. But in a massive brain play, Seiichi deliberately decides to accept her demand. He asks her if she really wants to do this. Ren says yes and eagerly waits for the romantic, heart-pounding moment. But the moment Seiichi is about to feed her, he points out that they look kind of like that. Ren thought he meant they looked like lovers, but Seiichi clarifies it looks like he's feeding an animal. Everything gets awkward, and Ren looks at their reflection in the window. What was reflected wasn't a romantic vibe between lovers, but the appearance of a fledgling bird begging for food. The narration reveals Seiichi's master plan. By intentionally going along with it, Seiichi took the lead and immediately gained the upper hand. Ren, now stuck in the passive role, completely overlooked that she had been maneuvered. Ren is completely shocked by the shallow sight. Seiichi smiles smugly, smoothly telling her that he guesses it was too soon for friends like them to be doing this. His true aim is to force her to recognize their relationship as strictly friends, to halt her aggressive push toward becoming lovers. He internally curses her love-struck brain for making this so difficult. However, Seiichi is entirely mistaken. Ren wants to actively push their relationship forward, but not just because she's love-struck. She mistakenly assumes Seiichi is a passive, herbivorous man, so she believes she has to take the lead. And for a super cop who hasn't been interested in men for a long time, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Her eyes erupt in literal flames of determination as she completely refuses to let this chance slip away. Because she knows if she misses this chance, there won't be another, making her incredibly proactive. Instantly making her next aggressive move, she locks on to Seiichi with a massive blush and smoothly asks for a sip of his coffee. Seiichi violently spits his coffee everywhere in pure shock. He frantically screams at her to just order her own cup, but Ren fiercely pushes forward, insisting she only wants a taste. She cheerfully uses his own logic against him, claiming that friends do this kind of sharing all the time, referencing some high school girls sharing ice cream. Seiichi completely freezes, realizing he's trapped. Since she deliberately used the word friends, flat out refusing her request would mean acknowledging they weren't even friends. He can't refuse. He realizes her true, terrifying aim, an indirect kiss. She cheerfully tries to take a sip from his mug. Suddenly, Seiichi gets up and desperately tries to play it cool, nervously laughing and begging her not to read any deeper meaning into it because it's just sharing. Ren sighs in disappointment, muttering she thought he was going to say something else. Seiichi breathes a massive sigh of relief, thinking he was just overthinking things. But then Ren whips out her phone and snaps a pic. Seiichi panics, asking her what she's doing. She casually mentions she's thinking of sending a message about sharing coffee with a male friend to her fellow police officers. She says it's like a tweet and wonders how it would look to those around her. Seiichi internally screams that Ren is completely ignoring both public and private boundaries. Completely ignoring his panic, Ren just asks how she should introduce him. Sweating bullets, Seiichi tries to logically stop her, arguing that drinking from someone else's cup is unhygienic. Ren says she doesn't mind, but right when she's about to take a sip, she suddenly pauses and holds the mug in silence. Seiichi nervously asks what's wrong. Ren glares at the mug intensely. Seiichi asks her if she actually doesn't like coffee. She awkwardly stammers, asking why he would think that and insisting she can drink coffee just fine. She violently flinches, splashing coffee everywhere. It turns out Ren Karasuma absolutely cannot stand bitter things. She can only drink coffee if it's heavily sweetened. She slowly reaches for the sugar and milk on the table, but because she's technically sharing, adding sugar or milk to his black coffee is an absolute no. She violently slams her fist on the table, screaming that it's completely unthinkable and she simply can't do it. Ren entirely slumps over the table in total defeat. She tells him to go ahead and laugh at this absolutely childish woman who is 24 years old and cannot even get through a single black coffee. Seiichi casually leans back. He smoothly waves over a waitress and orders a sweet caramel macchiato just for her. Resting his chin on his hand, Seiichi flashes a genuinely smooth smile, telling her he actually finds that childish part of her very cute. It's another massive critical hit. Ren aggressively blushes, completely flustered by the sudden compliment. Later, Ren violently drops sugar cubes into her new drink. Taking a sip with a soft smile, she cheerfully notes that the macchiato tastes a lot sweeter than usual today. Seiichi sighs in relief, internally noting that she's finally in a better mood. He admits to himself that pleasing her is incredibly tough, since you never know what might trigger her terrifying senses. He smugly concludes that she's just like a whimsical, unpredictable cat. Suddenly, Ren says that Seiichi isn't good with anything sweet. Seiichi confirms this, and she continues, saying she doesn't like bitter things. She flashes a devious smile, playfully pointing out that their relationship has officially taken one step closer to being lovers. Seiichi is completely caught off guard, spills his coffee, and asks her how she figured that out. Ren flawlessly counters, reminding him that he was the one who explicitly said they should start by getting to know each other to deepen their relationship. Seiichi sweats, nervously questioning if he actually said that. Ren completely destroys him by pulling out her police phone and informs him she has a recording of his Wabi-Sabi speech from earlier. Completely defeated, Seiichi slumps his head on the table, while Ren begs the waitress for a wet towel and a refill. He violently gulps, staring at her in sheer terror. He realizes he needs to completely reassess his understanding of this woman. She isn't a whimsical, harmless cat. Ren Karasuma is a fierce, terrifying leopardess, actively licking her lips right in front of her prey. And let's be completely honest here. Yes, you and I both want a girl exactly like her. The next chapter kicked things off with Seiichi trapped in the passenger seat of an active police cruiser. Ren is sitting right behind the wheel. Seiichi frantically wonders what you even call this kind of situation. Ren excitedly declares it's a drive date, but Seiichi counters that it feels a lot more like an arrest. To find out how he got here, we flash back to an alleyway where Seiichi is talking to his terrifying Yakuza-looking boss, Taka-san. Seiichi nervously asks exactly how long he has to keep up this fake relationship with Ren, but Taka heavily complains that the arms deal is dragging on for some reason, so it's going to be about 3 whole months. Seiichi completely loses his mind. 3 months? Taka-san must be kidding, right? He never knows when he might get caught. With a terrifying glare, Taka-san tells Seiichi that complaining to him won't change a single thing. He bluntly states that he can't control the gang's schedule. Then he coldly orders him to prove he's a true con artist and literally scam her until the very end. After Taka-san leaves, Seiichi slumps against a wall, heavily groaning over this 3-month nightmare. Later, back on the street, Seiichi resolves to entirely avoid all unnecessary contact with Ren during those 3 months. But suddenly, a police car aggressively pulls up next to him with sirens blaring, and someone yells at him to stop. That someone being, of course, Ren. Seiichi violently freaks out, demanding to know why she is here. She heavily blushes and nearly declares she's on patrol, but immediately changes her answer to because of love. Seiichi nervously points out that patrols are usually done with a partner. Ren completely admits she literally just abandoned her partner because she smelled a crime and followed the scent right to him. She purely believes this is the absolute power of love. Seiichi internally freaks out, entirely unable to believe she actually found him by tracking the scent of a crime. Realizing he has to somehow survive this situation, Seiichi desperately tells her it isn't love, and the exact moment he says this, Ren shoots him a terrifying glare. He quickly begs her to hear him out, smoothly claiming that it's more like fate. Ren blushes and smiles, admitting that when he says something that romantic, she cannot come up with a single retort. Seiichi flawlessly plays the cool guy, claiming he was just stating facts. The narration reveals his genius strategy. By deliberately using the vague term fate, he is subtly making sure their relationship isn't officially upgraded to lovers. For a con man, ensuring things are strictly taken at face value is vital for survival. Seiichi smoothly tries to take his leave so he doesn't obstruct her police duties. As he walks off looking totally exhausted, Ren notices his fatigue and offers to give him a ride. Seiichi tries to reject the offer, but Ren flashes a deeply terrifying shadowed smile and completely commands him to get in. Which brings us right back to the present. Seiichi nervously sits in the passenger seat, realizing he literally couldn't refuse a direct order to get into a police car. He violently sweats, wondering where on earth they are going. Since she doesn't know where he lives, could she be taking him straight to the police station? What exactly could she be planning? Seiichi totally panics, awkwardly claiming he just remembered something and desperately trying to bail out of the moving car. Suddenly, Ren brings up their earlier conversation about not being in an official romantic relationship yet. Seiichi nervously confirms. Ren continues, stating that they are just more than friends and not quite lovers yet, and that the goal was to get to know each other. And since they successfully learned more about each other at the cafe, isn't it about time to finally decide? But then she faces him, intensely demanding to know exactly when they are going to become proper lovers and start dating for real. A terrified Seiichi realizes that this was her ultimate aim all along. He recalls they've had similar conversations in the past, but this time her intention is completely different. She's asking specifically for a "from when." Ren wants to make her intentions absolutely clear. Seiichi knows if he tries to dodge this, things will surely not end well for him. He nervously wonders if she won't let him go until he gives her a concrete answer. Ren warmly tells him she really likes his attitude and their current relationship. She completely understands that men are naturally romantics. She thinks it's exciting and good. But there's a saying that men are romantics, and there's also a saying that women are realists. She puts both hands on her chest, blushing beautifully as she smoothly admits that she wants stability far more than excitement. But because she has both hands on her chest, the police cruiser starts violently swerving all over the road. Seiichi screams in absolute primal terror, wildly begging her to please grab the steering wheel. Seiichi manages to survive the swerve, but internally realizes that if they actually start dating, her demands as a lover will aggressively increase, and his criminal identity will be completely exposed. He decides to use the door-in-the-face negotiation technique. The narration explains that this involves initially making an excessive demand on purpose just to get it rejected, making it much easier to push through your actual smaller request afterward. Seiichi puts this master technique into play. He asks Seiichi exactly when she would like them to start dating. She forcefully declares today, right at this very moment. Seiichi sighs, saying he figured she'd say that. Ren intensely asks him if he has a problem with that. Seiichi smoothly counters that he doesn't have a problem since they'll have to decide at some point, so it's really just a matter of sooner or later. But internally, he's entirely going for the later. Planning to use the door-in-the-face technique to reach a compromise, he tells Ren he thinks it's way too soon for them to start dating and boldly asks for at least 6 months. But then, Ren hits him with a terrifying, eye-bulging glare. Seiichi squeaks in pure fear, desperately asking her to watch the road. The narration steps in to point out that Ren Karasuma is absolutely not a woman who comes to the negotiation table for a simple door-in-the-face approach. Seiichi violently pivots. He desperately argues that a police car totally doesn't set the mood, and officially dating requires various special preparations. Seiichi tactfully pleads Ren to enter the negotiation without actually extracting a commitment. With Ren literally crushing the steering wheel in anger, he smoothly feeds her sweet words, heavily implying that he wants to plan something incredibly special. Ren's mind instantly goes to wedding bells, aggressively blushing as she entirely assumes he means a literal marriage proposal. Totally pacified, Seiichi takes his chance and asks for about 3 months instead. Seiichi sweats heavily, realizing he perfectly aligned his excuse with Taka-san's timeline. He internally screams that he'll definitely make it happen. He geniusly reasons that even if she were to reject it, he can instantly turn the tables by asking if she's really willing to neglect the important preparations for their proposal. Suddenly, Ren announces they're here. Seiichi looks around, entirely confused as they step out of the car. They're standing on a gorgeous scenic overlook with a massive view of the entire city. Ren smiles warmly, proudly declaring it's her absolute favorite spot. Seiichi is completely stunned, asking if this is the entire reason she made him ride in the police car. Ren softly smiles, explaining that he looked really tired earlier, so she just genuinely wanted to cheer him up. She sweetly asks if he feels a bit better now. Ren looks down, admitting she still doesn't know much about him, except that he doesn't like sweet things. She gently grabs both of his hands, looking deep into his eyes with a massive, genuine blush. She softly tells him she is willing to lay bare absolutely everything for him, and sweetly asks him not to keep too much to himself either, and Seiichi is completely swept off his feet. Seiichi violently covers his mouth, internally screaming. For a con man who has only ever faked relationships, this level of pure, genuine affection is completely foreign territory. He realizes the romantic vibe is incredibly dangerous. If she officially confesses to him in this mood, it will be mathematically impossible to refuse. Desperate to break the romantic tension, Seiichi awkwardly stammers, trying to bring up their earlier conversation. Ren just stares at him, completely pulling her eyelid down and sticking her tongue out with a playful bleh. She calls him an honestly dense person, completely dropping the heavy romantic atmosphere. Seiichi internally rejoices, asking himself if he successfully dodged the bullet. She isn't showing a single sign of her terrifying crime intuition triggering. Seiichi breathes a massive sigh of relief, wondering if he somehow miraculously managed to survive another day. Ren cheerfully smiles and asks if we should go now. He quickly says yes. As they return to the car, Seiichi ponders how after these 3 months, it's going to be a permanent goodbye to Ren. He silently apologizes to her and starts to genuinely wonder what would happen if he weren't a con man and she weren't a cop. But he stops midway, heavily reminding himself that he absolutely cannot fall for any woman. Suddenly, Ren suggests they go to a place that will really cheer him up. Later, we cut to a very nervous and confused Seiji being straddled by a completely nude Ren, who boldly reminds him that she did say she was willing to lay everything bare. And that massive cliffhanger is where this chapter and recap end. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Manga Offload, and comment down below if you want to see Seiichi try to survive the rest of this chaotic 3-month countdown. Catch you in the next one.